I can still hear the fork settle on porcelain, the tiniest click before my son's hand came down like a gavel. The wine glasses jumped. Silverware skittered. Ethan leaned across the table, eyes hot, and said it plain enough for the candles to understand. "I wish you weren't here, Dad." The room froze. My granddaughter Lily stopped mid-breath with a butter roll in her hand. Maya stared at her plate like it might save her. Behind Ethan, the garland lights blinked, green, red, green, like a quiet metronome to humiliation. I didn't raise my voice. Men who've carried payrolls and mortgages don't need to. I set my napkin down, with the same care I used when I used to box pastries at dawn. "Say it again," I told him. "You heard me." His jaw clenched. "You ruin every holiday with your rules. You act like this is still your house." "It's not." "Well then, here's the part you think hurts." It didn't. It landed like a diagnosis I'd already suspected. I stood, slow enough to let the chair legs speak for me on the marble. Control has a sound. It's quieter than anger and colder than silence. I looked at my boy, the one I taught to hammer a straight line, to sign his name without borrowing mine, and I said, "You'll remember this Christmas for the rest of your life." Hook over. Now the housekeeping. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. I took my coat from the back of the chair. One of the wine glasses tipped, red bleeding across the white cloth like a signature that couldn't be erased. Maya's hand reached for Ethan's sleeve. He shook it off. He thought victory felt like volume. He didn't know it feels like paperwork. "Grandpa?" Lily's voice was a lamp in a storm. "Where are you going?" "To give your father exactly what he asked for," I said, soft as sugar. "Peace." The foyer mirror caught a man of 68 with bakery burns on his forearms and winter at his temples. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, the kind that makes your bones count themselves. Behind me, no one moved. I stepped onto the porch, and the snow did what snow does. It covered tracks as they were made. At the car, I let the keys sit in my palm. There's a split second between insult and response where a life can turn. Most men waste it on fury. I used it to aim. I thought of vault keys, deed binders, and the dull green light of my office lamp. I thought of the signature that has always paid for the meals Ethan pretends are his. From the house. Ethan called, "You walk out that door, don't come back." "That's the plan," I said, and drove into the dark. By the time the headlights found the road, my heartbeat had steadied into a checklist. Tonight would not be about rage. It would be about record-keeping. Distance you can measure in deeds, and when dawn came, it wouldn't arrive for him. It would arrive for me. The road home was a long ribbon of frozen black. My wipers brushed falling snow aside, light, steady, unbothered by the storm happening inside my son's dining room. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my palms had settled. Rage burns fast, strategy burns slow. Inside, my house greeted me with the same quiet it had offered every night since my wife passed. No accusations, no slammed doors, just the hum of the old heater and the faint smell of cinnamon trapped in the walls from the years she baked beside me. I didn't turn on the big lights. I went straight to the office, flipping on the green banker's lamp. Its glow hit the safe in the corner, the same safe my wife and I bought when we opened Sweet Magnolia Bakery. She used it for recipe books and spare cash. I used it for everything else. The dial clicked under my fingers. One turned, two. The lock released with a sound I felt more than heard. Inside lay the paper backbone of my entire life. Property deeds, escrow titles, investment statements, 3 closed business files, and 1 envelope labeled Lake Holdings. Every document bore one name, Charles Lake, mine. Not Ethan's, not mine and his. Just mine, and that was the hinge the whole night would swing on. I spread the papers across the desk, lining each document like evidence. Ethan thought he owned the house because he slept in it. He forgot the law doesn't honor occupancy. It honors ink. I picked up the phone and scrolled to Daniel Cole, my attorney, smart, quiet, fast. The call rang once. "Charles." His voice was groggy. "I need the transfer authorization drafted tonight." A pause. Papers rustled on his end. "Something happened?" "Yes," I said. "Disrespect," Daniel exhaled through his nose. "All right." You'll need to sign before 1 a.m. I'm ready. He emailed the documents at 12:14 a.m. I printed them. The warm sheets slid out like verdicts. My pen, a fountain pen my wife bought me on our 25th anniversary, still wrote smooth despite its age signature. Signature, initial, signature, every stroke felt like lifting weight off a beam that had carried too much. For too long. When I finished, the house groaned gently, the way old houses do when wind shifts outside. I leaned back in the chair and stared at my name on the fresh contracts. Charles Lake, final owner, final decision maker. I placed the signed forms into a brown envelope, sealed it, and set it beside the safe. Outside, snow whispered against the window. Inside, my heartbeat synced with the ticking clock. It was 12:58 a.m., just enough time to whisper what men rarely admit. I raised my son with my hands, but I'll reclaim my peace with my signature. By dawn, the world would look different for both of us. Dawn arrived like a verdict, quiet, pale, unavoidable. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. Men don't get tired when justice is finally stretching its legs. At 6:40 a.m., a white sedan rolled into my driveway. 2 bank representatives stepped out in navy coats, holding clipboards and insulated coffee mugs. No greetings, no small talk, just the efficient courtesy of professionals who deal in signatures and silence. "Mr. Lake," the taller one asked. I handed him the sealed envelope. "Everything's inside." They examined each page, checking stamps, initials, notary lines, property descriptions. When the shorter one nodded, the taller one said, "We'll deliver this to the bank before 9 a.m. Escrow will open by 9:15. Speed, precision, control. All the things Ethan mistook for love. I walked them back to their car. The snow had softened to powder, settling on the roof like a clean start. As their engine faded down the street, I felt my shoulders loosen in a way they hadn't in years. By the time Ethan woke, the world was already moving without him. And that was the point. Back at his house, my house. Legally, Ethan shuffled into the kitchen in a robe, hair sticking up like a man who thought the day owed him something. Maya asked, "Do you want coffee?" But he was already staring at his phone. The first notification lit the screen. Property transfer, escrow confirmation received. He blinked, confused. Tapped again. Deed assigned to new holding entity, CL Management. At that same moment, I was sitting in my truck across town, sipping the coffee I brewed at 5 a.m. Watching snow melt on the windshield. I imagined his face when the next email hit. Joint account withdrawal. Balance 0.00. And the one after that, account owner update. Charles Lake. The mug fell from his hand in real life. I didn't need to be there. I could feel it hit the tile. Maya jumped, grabbing a towel. "What's wrong?" "She sold it," he whispered. "She who?" "My father." He jabbed the screen toward her. "He sold the damn house." Maya froze, reading each line slowly like she was walking into cold water. "Effective immediately?" she whispered. Ethan's breath went ragged. "He can't do that." "Oh," I murmured in my truck, "but I can." And I did. At 8:57 a.m., my phone buzzed with a single text from the bank. Escrow opened. Ownership transfer in progress. At 9:03, transfer complete. And at 9:04, congratulations. Mr. Lake, you are now the sole former owner of Magnolia. Residence, I put the truck in. Gear. The first stone had rolled. The avalanche was next. By the time the morning crowd was just beginning to crawl onto Charleston's streets, Ethan was already pacing inside the law offices of Sloan and Pierce like a man who'd lost a bet he didn't remember making. I wasn't there physically. I didn't need to be. A father knows the sound of his son's panic even from miles away. While he ranted in that polished glass building, I sat in my truck a block away, engine off, watching the office windows glow like a row of interrogators waiting to take their turn. Inside, Ethan slammed his hand on Attorney Sloan's desk, because that's what boys do when they mistake noise for leverage. "There has to be a way to reverse it," he barked. "He can't just sell the house without my consent." Richard Sloan, slick hair, expensive suit, the kind of man who bills more per hour than Ethan makes in a week, didn't flinch. He just rotated the contract on his desk so my son could see the deed clearly. You don't appear on a single line of these documents, Sloane said. Your father is the sole owner, and legally, that makes the sale airtight. Ethan's jaw unhinged. You helped draft those documents 10 years ago. You're supposed to protect my family. Sloane shrugged, cool, clinical, brutally honest. I protected your father's assets. That was my job. Maya sat in the corner, hands twisted in her lap, eyes red. She looked like a woman slowly realizing she'd built a life on someone else's scaffolding, and that the builder had finally taken his tools back. There must be something else, Ethan said, voice cracking into something almost childlike. Some appeal, some pause, something. There's nothing to appeal, Sloane said. He executed a clean sale overnight, precisely, legally, strategically. That's the word that matters. Not spite, not rage. Strategy, a father's final language. From my truck, a notification buzzed, documents acknowledged. Sloane and Pierce, good, right on time. I watched Ethan storm out of the office moments later, shoving the lobby door so hard the glass rattled. Maya followed, shoulders hunched, moving like guilt had weight. He spun on her. Why aren't you saying anything? She whispered, maybe your father. Isn't the villain here? The look on my son's face. Fear, not of losing the house, but of losing control. That's the moment. Every bully discovers they have no leverage. When the person they push finally steps back, I started the truck. The legal wall had been built. Now, it was time to make it unscalable. Was halfway through reorganizing the last drawer of my office, making space for new files, new beginnings, when my phone lit up with Maya's name. I didn't answer. Not the first time, not the second. It was the third call, the one people make when panic outweighs pride, that I finally picked up. Her voice trembled before she even spoke. Charles, please. Please don't hang up. I didn't respond. Silence is a scalpel. People reveal their truth, trying to fill it. She inhaled shakily. Ethan's losing it. He's shouting. He's blaming everyone. He punched a hole in the pantry door. Lily's crying in her room. I don't know what to do. I took a slow breath, letting the calm settle between us, like dust on polished wood. You're calling the wrong lake, I said. She choked back a sob. I know he said horrible things last night. I know he crossed a line, but he didn't mean it, Charles. It was just a moment. No, I answered. Moments don't shatter families. Patterns do. And he's been building this pattern for years, she sniffled. You raised him better. I raised him, I said. The better part was supposed to be his contribution. Silence again. She didn't fill it this time. Finally, she whispered, he said he never wanted you around. He didn't mean Maya, I cut in. Family ends where disrespect begins. And he planted that ending himself. In the background, I could hear Ethan shouting. Something slammed, hard enough to carry through the phone. Maya lowered her voice. He's terrified, Charles. He's saying you'll ruin him. He's saying you're doing this to destroy our lives. Not your life, I corrected her. His choices. His consequences. I reached for the file folder Daniel had sent that morning. The pages felt cold, almost metallic in their precision. Where is he now? I asked. In the backyard, she whispered. Pacing, swearing, he threw his phone at the fence. I nodded to myself. Predictable. Rage always runs out of places to aim. It's going to get worse, I told her. Before it gets better. What do you mean? She asked. I opened the drawer and took out a stack of pre-filled forms, restraining order paperwork Daniel had prepared, just in case. I mean, I said, that peace isn't passive. It's enforced, her breath caught. Charles, please don't, but I was already signing. My pen carved the line clean, Charles Lake. Effective today, I said calmly. Your husband is legally prohibited from stepping foot on any property connected to me. Maya gasped. Charles, please. He'll break if you do this. He should have thought about that, I replied. Before he tried to break me, when I hung up, the house felt lighter, and the boundary was finally, formally drawn. The restraining order was processed faster than I expected, maybe because Daniel filed it himself, Maybe because judges don't take kindly to a grown man telling his father to disappear on Christmas. Either way, by mid-afternoon, the paperwork was stamped, logged, and active. I knew Ethan would show up. Men like him always do. Their pride arrives before their logic. I was in my den, sipping black coffee and reviewing the final confirmation email when the motion alert chimed on my phone. Front gate. Movement. Detected. Of course. I walked to the foyer window and pulled the curtain just enough to see him. Ethan stood at the gate in a wrinkled shirt, hair wild, cheeks flushed with a cocktail of anger and fear. Snow clung to his shoes. His breath fogged the air. He grabbed the bars with both hands and shouted, "Open the gate!" I didn't move. The next shout cracked louder. "Dad! You can't do this." I clicked the speaker button on the keypad beside the door, brought the microphone close to my mouth, and let my voice roll out calmly through the outdoor speakers. "This gate only opens for respect." The effect was immediate. He froze, stunned that my voice carried over him like an announcement at a train station. Then rage flooded in to fill the space surprise left behind. "You think you can shut me out? You think you can just sell the house? You can't cut us off." I stepped to the window again, just enough for my silhouette to appear. Neighbors were already peeking out from porches and windows, the kind of discreet curiosity people pretend is concern. "Charles?" Mrs. Atkins from across the street stepped onto her porch. "Oh, Lord, is that your boy yelling like that?" Ethan spun on her. "Go inside, this is private." But once a scene becomes public, there's no taking it back. I pressed the speaker again. "Careful, Ethan, the neighborhood can hear you." He slammed his fist against the gate. "Let me in." "No," I answered. "The days of you entering my life without permission are over." He rattled the bars like a frustrated child at a playground. Snow fell from the railing with each violent shake. "You're my father." "By biology," I said through the speaker. "Not by your behavior." Behind him, two more neighbors stepped out, phones angled just enough to pretend they weren't recording. The wind carried their whispers across the street. "That's the lake boy. Didn't he scream at his daddy yesterday? He looks unhinged." Ethan heard it. His shoulders tightened. I watched him pull at his hair, shaking with helpless fury, and something shifted in his face. Something raw, something cracking. He wasn't angry anymore. He was scared. He leaned close to the gate and spoke in a trembling whisper. "Dad, please, don't do this." I ended the speaker connection. The gate remained locked. The silence that followed was the first lesson he'd learned from me in years. By evening, the snow had thickened into a soft white curtain outside my windows. Ethan had finally left the gate, storming off in the same direction as a man who runs out of arguments, but not ego. I knew where he'd go next. People like Ethan don't go home when they're cornered. They go looking for someone to blame. That's why my phone buzzed at 7:12 p.m. with a message from Daniel. "Found something. Call me." I dialed immediately. He didn't waste time. "Charles, your son's been moving money, quietly, for months." I sat down, steadying myself. "Explain. You know those business ventures he bragged about at Thanksgiving?" Daniel continued. "He didn't fund them." "You did." My fingers tightened around the phone. "I never transferred a dollar. You didn't have to. He used your name." Papers shuffled on his end. "Several transfers from 2 family trust accounts, both created after your wife passed, went directly into his projects. Transfers documented as approved by the account owner." I felt heat rise under my collar. "Approved by who?" "Not you," he said. "But the signatures match your old files, forged." "My son had forged my hand? That's fraud, Daniel?" "Yes, and not minor fraud." A pause. "He forged a dead woman's trust documents too, Charles. My late wife, the bakery's co-founder, the woman who spent her last years believing her family was intact." I closed my eyes and exhaled slow. Not sadness, not pity, clarity. "What are my options?" I asked. 3, he said. "Ignore it. Demand repayment or another shuffle. We file what? A civil fraud case. Lake versus Lake." He let the words settle between us. Heavy, precise. "This isn't about revenge," Daniel said softly. "This is about protection. Legal and personal. I looked around the office. The green lamp, the safe, the photographs of my wife holding our children when they were small and loved and uncomplicated. Then I said, "Draft it." "You're sure?" "Yes." My voice didn't shake. "Send me the paperwork tonight." Minutes later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject: Civil Fraud Complaint. Draft 132 pages. Transfer logs. Timestamped withdrawals. Side-by-side comparisons of my real signature and Ethan's imitation. Screenshots of account access from his devices. Proof. Cold, clean proof. I signed the complaint with the same pen I'd used the night before. Daniel texted back instantly, "Filing tonight. Court will stamp it in the morning." One more message followed. "Charles, once this goes through, your son loses more than money." I stared at the screen. "He loses the illusion that he ever controlled you." I placed the signed document into a new folder labeled Case File, Lake versus Lake. The avalanche had started, and this time he wouldn't outrun it. The next morning broke with a strange, brittle calm, the kind that tricks you into thinking nothing is about to happen. But I knew better. Chaos has a schedule, and Ethan was always punctual when it came to self-destruction. At 10:03 a.m., my phone vibrated with a gate alert. Front gate. Movement detected. Showtime. I stepped onto the porch with my coffee still steaming, the cold air biting at my ears. Down the driveway, Ethan's car screeched to a stop so violently that a spray of gravel dusted the iron bars. He jumped out before the engine even settled, hair uncombed, shirt half-tucked. Eyes wide and glassy like a man who had spent the night arguing with his own reflection. He stormed toward the gate, grabbing the bars with both hands. "Open this gate. Right now!" I didn't touch the speaker yet. I let his voice tear through the quiet street. Two neighbors peeked through curtains. One stepped onto his porch, pretending to sweep snow he didn't need to sweep. Another lifted a phone. Of course, Ethan saw the camera and turned rabid. "Stop filming! This is family business." "No, son, not anymore." I pressed the speaker button, letting my voice glide out calm and amplified. "Ethan, the neighborhood can... Ethan, the neighborhood can hear you. Be mindful of your audience." He spun, face beet red. "You think this is funny? You think you can ruin my life and just what? Drink coffee!" I took a deliberate sip. "It's quite good, actually." That pushed him over the edge. "This is my house," he screamed, shaking the gate hard enough to make the metal whine. "No," I answered. "It was my kindness. You mistook it for ownership." Phones went up. More neighbors stepped out. A teen leaned over his porch railing with his camera at full focus. Ethan noticed the growing audience, the whispers, the recording lights, and panic crept into his expression. "Dad, stop this! Please!" He grabbed the bars again, knuckles white. "Let me in! I'm your son!" My thumb hovered over the speaker. Then I gave him the line I'd been saving, the line baked in the oven of everything he'd done. "You wanted me gone, Ethan, but look at you now. You're the one outside." Those words landed like a collapsing roof. His shoulders sagged. His breath hitched. His voice cracked into something small. From the end of the street, Maya's car rolled into view. She parked, stepped out slowly, and wrapped her coat tight around herself. Her eyes were swollen red, eyes of a woman who'd cried until the well ran dry. Ethan turned to her desperately. "Tell him, Maya. Tell him he can't do this." But she didn't move toward him. She stayed near the car, trembling. "It's over, Ethan," she said softly. "You pushed too far." Her voice wasn't angry. It was defeated. Ethan stumbled back like the words had weight. He looked between her, the crowd, and me, and he finally realized something. This wasn't just a consequence. This was exposure. His collapse wasn't private. It was public record. And in sweet revenge fashion, the street had become his courtroom, and the cameras were the jury. Act 9. The envelope. 400 words. When the crowd finally thinned and Maya drove away with Lily buckled quietly in the back seat, Ethan remained at the gate, slumped against the bars, like a man waiting for a sentence he already knew he deserved. I didn't go out to meet him. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I simply turned from the porch, closed my front door, and let silence do what words never could. Inside, the house felt still, clean, uncluttered, almost ceremonial. I walked through each room slowly, absorbing the weight of what had led to this moment. A father shouldn't have to enforce boundaries with court orders and property transfers. But a father also shouldn't have to swallow humiliation at his own holiday table. I reached the dining room, the one I'd stopped using after my wife died. The morning light cut across the table in pale stripes. And that's where I placed the envelope. It was cream-colored, heavy, the kind used for legal correspondence. I wrote his name slowly on the front in my neat, practiced hand. Ethan Lake. Inside were 3 things. First, the printed receipts showing every account he had touched without my consent. Exact amounts, exact timestamps, every dollar mapped. Second, the forensic comparison from Daniel's office, my real signature alongside Ethan's forged imitation. Proof in ink that betrayal had started long before Christmas dinner, and last, a single sheet of paper with 7 words written in the center. You said life is better without me. Agreed. No anger, no screams, just truth, clean, quiet, devastating. I sealed the envelope and set it perfectly in the center of the table. Not hidden, not dramatic, just waiting. Then I walked through the house one last time, closing doors softly behind me. I paused at the photo of my wife in the hallway, her apron dusted with flour, smiling with that calm steadiness she carried like armor. I'm fixing what we couldn't, I whispered. I'm choosing peace. When I reached the front door, I didn't look back. Some endings don't need a final glance. They need a clean exit. Outside, the air hit cold against my face, sharp enough to wake the soul. I locked the door, the last lock he'd ever rattle, and slid the key into my coat pocket. As I walked down the driveway, I heard the gate buzz. Ethan had found the courage to come closer. Maybe he'd find the envelope next. Maybe he'd tear it open with shaking fingers. Maybe he'd scream, cry, collapse. But that part wasn't mine anymore. Peace doesn't wait for people to understand it. Peace leaves, and that's exactly what I did. A year can rebuild a man if he lets it. And I let it. Sweet Magnolia Bakery reopened on a Thursday in early December. Same wooden counters, same bell above the door, same cinnamon warmth my wife used to carry on her skin. I rebuilt it with the money I reclaimed, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, signature by signature. People didn't just show up for pastries. They showed up for the story. The silent father, they called me online. I didn't argue. Silence had served me better than shouting ever did. By mid-morning, the bakery was full, retirees sharing coffee, nurses grabbing pastries before shifts, a group of women whispering over pecan pie plates like they were studying scripture. Grace, my daughter, carried a tray of fresh rolls to the counter. They're asking for you again, Dad. You're practically a celebrity. I'm a baker, I said. Fame doesn't rise in my oven, she laughed. Tell that to the reporters waiting outside. I shook my head and kept restocking the display. Then the bell jingled. Lily ran in first, older now, taller, wearing a little backpack covered in stickers.
Grandpa.
She hugged my waist, and for a moment the world softened, here to help me burn another batch of cookies. I teased. She giggled. Only if I get to taste one first, Grace winked at me. She's becoming your shadow. Good. A man needs at least one branch on the family tree that still grows upward. I handed Lily a warm sugar cookie when I noticed the shift in the room. A sudden hush, a ripple of whispers, and then I saw why. Ethan stood in the doorway. He looked smaller, clothes loose on his frame, eyes tired, shoulders collapsed inward like a man carrying a year's worth of consequences on his back. He stepped forward slowly, as if walking through invisible wreckage. Dad, he said, I came to talk. I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. I didn't offer a chair. I simply gestured to the glass case. If you want something, the prices are listed. He blinked, stunned. Dad, please. I'm not here to buy a pastry. No, I asked. Then you're in the wrong building. This place serves food, not apologies. His voice cracked. I miss you. I don't miss disrespect. He swallowed, eyes glistening. I just want another chance. I reached into the display, took out a small apple tart, placed it in a white box, and set it on the counter between us. "That'll be $2.50. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket, pulled out a few wrinkled bills, and slid them across. I handed him the box. Nothing more. He waited, hoping for warmth, forgiveness, anything that resembled the father he once knew. But I had learned something this past year. Peace doesn't arrive when people apologize. It arrives when you stop needing them to. Ethan lowered his head and walked out, the bakery bell chiming behind him. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Grandpa, was Daddy sad?" "Yes," I told her gently. "But sadness is how people learn." She nodded as if she understood more than she should. Outside, the street glowed with holiday lights, soft, golden, honest. Inside, Sweet Magnolia thrummed with life. Peace had finally become my inheritance, and this time I kept it.